Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 8. Can't believe it's already episode 8 of our operator series. Moving forward with your business. Very excited with the guests that we have on today. I'll jump right into who they are, and then I have some questions from you all. And then, as Nick teased, and as I just found out like 3 minutes before we kick this off, we've got some prizes, some of which are TBD. Hello, Victor. Thanks for chiming in over here. I don't know what direction I am on, but chats, questions, please throw them in here. This is for you all, so we want to hear from you. So first we have Gerard Ecker. He's the founder and CEO of Ocean & Co. They sell jewelry like sea turtle bracelets and other ocean-related clothing. Every purchase goes to help support their mission, which is to rid the ocean of plastic. And this is a initiative that I love, somebody who's grown up right next to the beach and has always lived close to the beach and tries to spend as much time there as possible, even though right now it's closed out in California. Love seeing missions like this. And then also he is the co-founder of Method Marketing. And then we also have another serial entrepreneur with Ryan Treft, who founded Koala Tree and Peejamas. Koala Tree sells eco-minded outdoor apparel. Peejamas sells absorbent, reusable potty training pants. As we were chatting about before this, I have 3 kids under 6, and so I'm going to be spending some money on Peejamas right after we hang up.
I'll send you.
Say that again?
I'll send you a pair.
Perfect. For me or for my kids?
Either one.
And then Ryan also is co-founded IFS 360, which was acquired by Rakuten, so he knows the shipping and fulfillment space extremely well. So as we have done the last few weeks, as I mentioned, I'm in California. I'm actually in Orange County, California, in between San Diego and California. Would love to see in the comment section. Let's see where everybody's coming in from. And Ryan and Gerard, you guys can chime in or drop where you're coming in from as well. There we go. Pat in Newport Beach, who's right by me.
Oh, wonderful. And then also, as Casey teased too, and he just kind of found out, like I said, before we just kicked off, I told him, we are giving away 2 prizes kind of things. Whoever asked the most questions for today, the prize is still TBD. We'll take recommendations in the chat. And then who also comes up on stage and actually asks a video question, we'll give you guys something even better. As I teased kind of in the email, we still haven't decided. But that's we can have some suggestions here in the chat box too. And then, maybe Ryan and Gerard also have some ideas as well, but looks like we got a lot of people in here, so this is great.
Yeah. So here, I like to introduce new random things on the spur of the moment to get Nick's stress really high. So we'll play some music for a second. Well, I want to see from everybody. Everybody's throwing in where they're coming in from, which I love. For one of the giveaways, we'll pick a D2C brand. Everybody, please throw in your favorite direct-to-consumer brand. I see a bunch of people in Chicago in here, and with the MJ Doc. I'm going to try to play this from Instagram. We'll see if this works. And again, this music will get you pumped up to throw in your favorite D2C brand. So come on, throw them in there. Let's see if this will work. Where'd it go? It's on a piano. All right, as a huge basketball nerd who grew up in the 80s and 90s, I could geek out to the Bulls' intro song all day long. So looks like we've got some good suggestions in here. And to start things off, Gerard, I want to start with you. And I think something that you've experienced, which is really timely, is, you were a ShipBob customer for a while. I know that you went elsewhere. We've covered this on our website, and then you came back. So what we do in these series, we never really this is not about ShipBob. This is not to showcase anything that went wrong with, let's say, competitors of ours or other solutions, but it's just to help people think through what's important during these times. And so one, what do you look for in a fulfillment partner and what's important? And then number 2, you switch back to us during COVID-19 And so just to talk through, how you were able to navigate that as well.
Casey. I think one of the most important things to look for in a fulfillment partner is like clear pricing. If you can understand what your pricing is going to be, you can definitely forecast that expense better. Also, relinquishing control of your inventory to any 3PL is a hard thing to do. So feeling like you still have the software capabilities to manipulate your inventory, create bundles, and feel like you can still be in touch with your inventory. We really like that about ShipBob, and the software side of ShipBob is great for being able to do all the complex things we want to do. Whether it's our monthly subscription boxes, we can create those very easily, or creating bundles.
So I want to talk about bundles in general for a second, if you could elaborate on that. So with coronavirus, and especially at the beginning, people really buying bulk because they were worried about inventory getting depleted. We saw quite a few spikes from bundling. So if you could talk about that, and then also just the importance of increasing your average order value as a seller as well with bundles. If you could just share your insights and what you've seen there.
Yeah, for sure. So we found that most consumers don't like a lot of choices. If you can throw things together as a package deal, it's much easier to get them to convert on it. So what we'll do is around the holidays, or we'll do specialized bundling where we'll have a tumbler, bracelet, stainless steel straws, all thrown together in one bundle. And we'll use those as a package deal. And what's great about Shopify is we can, on the back end, just create those as a bundle and link the products that we want to be fulfilled. And we actually get to see them be picked and fulfilled. And like you said, we don't want to go into other companies too much, but we found that with some of the other companies out there, you don't actually get to see what's picked off the shelf. If you need to bundle and do things on the fly like that, you kind of rely on them to do it for you rather than being able to for itself, it's awesome. Yeah.
That's great. And then Ryan, I see you nodding your head, running a lot of brands, and also you run a digital marketing agency as well. You want to just talk about the importance of bundles and how you approach that?
Yeah, I used to have people back when I was in the fulfillment business, and rest assured, guys, I'm happily completely out. But it was eye-opening to me when people would come to me and they would want to do direct to consumer, and they would sell, say, a sub $10 product, and it cost me just as much time and labor to go and send a guy to do a pick for a $10 product as it did a $100 product. But the percentage of revenue for the consumer was dramatically different. So not only if you can get away with bundling, does it make sense from presenting the bundle on the site, even if it's not literally a bundle in the warehouse, if you can pull it off to have those show up as a pre-bundled case, and that makes sense, and it's not going to be a deterrent for somebody to order a 2-pack or a 4-pack, even better, because then it's just one pick versus 2 or 3. It can save you quite a bit on your pick and pack fees, and what the difference that can make if you're selling a lot of, say, sub $20 products, the difference that bundling can make on your percentage of revenue going towards fulfillment is massive, let alone what it does to boost up your average order value and your conversion and return on.
That's awesome. And so to get into the weeds here from Paul Howdegi, what third-party app or apps in Shopify do you use to manage bundles and inventory count? And that could be, Gerard, Ryan, either of you want to jump in.
So with what our solution is, first, the great part, integrate directly with ShipBob software, is we can create that as its own product, its own SKU within Shopify, and we don't need to rely on an app. We've used apps in the past to do upsells or order bumps, but if you want to put, like I talked about earlier, the sea turtle bracelet, a mug, straws, you can put it as its own product, its own SKU, and when it gets carried over into ShipBob, you just tell ShipBob what to fulfill when that product is sold, and you link all those master products back to that bundle. But we have used a couple different apps to do order bumps and bundling, but we found that that's the best solution. It's the most clean solution without having to rely on paying for extra apps.
That's awesome. Yeah, fewer technical issues with sharing data in between multiple apps. It's always nice to save some money as well. So thank you for that. And then also from Pat Miller, if people make a bundle purchase on Shopify, will ShipBob automatically be able to put all those items in the same package? So I think Gerard answered that. The answer is yes. Great. And so I want to stay on like the logistics theme, and Ryan, go over to you. So, you ran your own 3PL for a while. As you said to us before, you understand the trials and tribulations of fulfillment. So
Yeah.
How do you think things have changed, maybe for the better or for worse, or that just is what it is since COVID hit? And what do you see happening in the foreseeable future?
As far as logistics is concerned?
Yeah, just logistics and logistics within the e-commerce space.
I would say even prior to the warehouse, it's changed the most on production and delays in inbound shipping. That's probably where it's changed the most. But as far as, once it arrives, I think it just depends on how you go about it, because it would be much more difficult if you were doing your own fulfillment right now and you took a huge hit, whereas a 3PL can kind of on balance look at aggregate volume and maintain it a little bit better. So it kind of highlights the economies of scale that a 3PL can offer and sort of pass through back to the customer instead of having to lay everybody off because they're not subject to just one client. Because I've spoken with one of my buddies that still works for the company that was acquired, and he told me that volume is down, but not by much, like barely. And the way that he looks at it is there's certain accounts that might be down 90%, but depending on what the product is and whether or not that product is can benefit from the situation that we're in. Some of these products are sold so well that they sold out and they can't get enough in stock. Others are keeping adequate stock, but they're selling out like crazy. So it's kind of interesting to see, to talk to buddies that are managing a bunch of clients and hearing how some of them might be thriving right now, just depending on who they're servicing.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's been interesting to see Amazon, who is definitely the leader in the space, no question. Not only did they stop receiving non-essentials for a while, but they also, I think I ordered something on Prime 2 days ago, and even with the Prime tag, it wasn't going to come for 7 days. And then I actually received something last week that I ordered in March, which is very non-Amazon-like. Do you think that with Amazon kind of leading the charge across the board and how consumers react and then how brands naturally have to follow, that fast shipping will be less of a must-have, or do you think that people's expectations will just go back to that 1 day, 2 day, 3 day expectation?
That one, I think Amazon has definitely lowered consumer expectations now, because they're kind of like the gold standard for what people expect as far as for shipping times. I think when Amazon started introducing free 2 day shipping, that put every e-commerce brand kind of on notice that was going to be what was expected. But now, in light of Amazon slower shipping time, I mean, I have things that I've ordered from Amazon that are 15 days down now. I think it's kind of lowered the expectation across the board. But I think, once everything starts going back to normal, people are going to start expecting that again. People we're kind of in a environment where people want things and they want it now. The sooner you can deliver, the better. But I think Amazon definitely sets the stage for what consumers are expecting.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Let's see, we got a couple questions here. So we have two around forecasting. They're not necessarily related. Todd, we might need you to elaborate a little bit. You said, what's the forecast for e-commerce logistics space for third and fourth quarter? I can assume I know what you're saying there, Todd, but if you could just elaborate just so we can make sure that we're answering that. And then related to the forecasting space, so from Wahid, forecasting inventory can be really tricky when you import a product. There can be so many unforeseen circumstances overseas that affect your product. How do you ensure you're out of stock? So I guess, but for both Gerard and Ryan, if you want to start with, where do you manufacture? And then how have you navigated that? And then with forecasting.
Yeah, so thankfully, Coalatree had adequate stock on most things other than our trailhead pants are it's our number one selling product line. There were some colors and sizes that we couldn't get it in. There were delays in getting that in. In fact, there's some still on its way that should have been here long before now. And so, you can't really predict it, but I'm also hearing stories that are far worse than what we've dealt with there, or with what Peejamas has dealt with, maybe an extra month start to finish from production till it's in the warehouse. It's not that big of a deal, but I'm hearing other stories where production is way behind, shipping is getting held up, and you tack on an extra 3 or 4 months, it can really affect your business, right? Just depending on how much you have in stock. So I think it also depends on where your goods are coming from, and if the factory is ready. And in a lot of cases, they've had to lay off a lot of people to scale down, and so they may not have capacity right now. So it's a complex thing, and everything's been upended. But obviously, I would bake in extra lead time on production and shipping just to play it safer.
Is there any, I don't know, go-to resource or way that you approach your forecasting?
I try to keep my SKU count really simple in each company that I'm involved with, which helps, because I'm not smart enough to manage 1,000 SKUs and forecast that properly, right? You kind of reach this exponential point to where the difference between 20 SKUs and 40, honestly, that can be enough. But to go from 40 to, I mean, I don't know how people do it, to be honest with you. It's just not a game that I want to play. I'm actually, I just closed on a business that they cranked out 800 SKUs in 2.5 years, and there's zero chance that I will try to do that. I'm going to pare it way down from there. So that's my only answer is don't go crazy with your SKU count.
So talk about that a little bit, because I know from with ShipBob, a lot of our customers have a couple hundred SKUs or fewer.
Yeah,
and from the kind of, I don't know, being on our side, when I look at these large SKU or large catalog businesses, yeah, it gives me anxiety just thinking about it. But I know a lot of people think that adding additional SKUs will allow them to continue to drive new business or cross-sell. So how do you go about keeping your catalog small? And Gerard, I know your catalog is relatively small as well. So how do you guys approach keeping your catalog small while still being able to increase either lifetime value or continue to drive new sales?
I mean, you obviously have to give customers a selection, but I actually think it's pretty easy to overestimate that I have to offer, for me to generate more sales, I have to offer every color out there. I mean, with most products, I don't buy it, but you have to look at it not in isolation, but you have to look at it like the shorter the lead time, the more SKUs you should have. The lower the MOQ, the easier it is to crank out more SKUs. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, but I could list off. I mean, I would say that the reason why part of the reason why Coalatree was insolvent when we picked it up 4.5 years ago was because they turned out way too many SKUs, way too fast, in a way that made little sense relative to their size. So you kind of have to just go on pace with your cash flow and your lead time and your MOQ and where you are, and be sensible about what does the customer really need? Because, to his point, sometimes you give them too much choice and it could be overwhelming. Sometimes it's better to pare it down and just focus on a simplified message and let other things be ancillary add-ons. But you can't really answer that question without knowing what's my margin, what's my lead time, what's my minimum order quantity. Because if you have to beef up on it, if you have to order on a 6-month lead time, and you have to order what you project will take you a year to sell through it, that's really tough for cash flow. It could kill you.
Yeah,
I
I think about like the paradox of choice, which is a common theory.
Right.
Or you go to the grocery store and there's like 900 real brands and you leave with 0. We were looking at a customer of ours. They do about 50,000 orders a month. They have about 200 SKUs, and 3 SKUs account for 56% of their sales. 3 SKUs.
Yeah.
And, I think most businesses, somewhere between 1 and 4 SKUs, most of their sales. So growing beyond that is mostly just to try to get return customers and give them options. But as far as even like variety, the psychology behind it is most consumers, like the ideal number is to have 3 options, and most consumers will pick the middle option. If you give them much more than that, they'll spend way too much time thinking about it, and then they'll get distracted by something else. So
I love that. Just keeping it simple and trying that first. And then, so Gerard, around those options, and this is going to come back to bundles as well, because we're saying, hey, look into bundles but have fewer options. And so this is a question from Kiku. When it comes to bundling products, do you push those first and foremost, or do you have those as a follow-on? How do you approach where bundles sit within the customer journey?
For us, I think it's great to show the bundle side by side, because then you can highlight the value in the bundle. If they see what it costs to buy that product by itself, and then they see it contrasted in that bundle, to them they see the value. I always offer a discount on bundles, and that's how we get the consumer to go for that rather than buy it, by itself or buy an individual item. So I think it's important to kind of make sure they see the value of each product in that bundle. But around the holiday seasons, or when we do a bundle push, we'll definitely we'll push those through email, and we'll highlight them in our website. But we'll make sure we're not hiding the individual product, because we want the customer to feel like they have the choice to buy the individual product, but see the value of the bundle.
Nice. That's a great idea. And something that I know that I like to lean heavily on is just going around to the other industry leaders and stealing from them. And so a lot of my background is not just e-commerce, but B2B SaaS. And so also looking at like tangential industries. And so you look at a lot of like the B2B software companies, and you look at just go to their pricing pages. And this is not apples to apples for your e-com shop. You can see how do they price things, and how do they give you 1, 2, 3, 4 different options, what's included. And at the end of the day, that's a bundle. And you can buy the cheapest option, which is basically one item, or you can buy the middle option, which is another type of bundle. And you're getting that much more value for less. And then another one to look at too, who's been making a lot of news in a good way lately, is Peloton. And so whether you're going to buy a Peloton or not, go through their buying journey and see how are they trying to upsell you, and how can you buy the bike, and how can you buy the bike plus a bunch of other accessories, and how can you buy the bike plus a million other accessories and a bunch of other stuff, because they have such a large team and they're spending so much money in this highly competitive space. You can at least assume that they're doing some things right. And I don't know what they share from publicly on which bundles are purchased most, but you can kind of just steal some ideas, and even how they like position or design. I know that's something that Nick does a great job. Nick on here does, with just looking at the way that other people create different landing pages or product pages, because there's so much good stuff you can kind of take from others. All right, we got some more questions coming in. Let's see, there's a question from Patricia. I can answer this really quickly. Does ShipBob have a minimum number of orders per month to do fulfillment for a new customer? Yes and no. So for it to go through our sales team, it's $400 a month. I gave you my email address. You can email me regardless. But everybody can go through what we call our growth or self-service program, where there's really no minimum. So it doesn't really matter there. So sign on up, come on through, email me with questions. Catherine, do any of you have experience with ShipBob and BigCommerce? Interesting question. I actually was at BigCommerce before joining ShipBob. So Catherine, if you want to just elaborate a little bit on your question, I'm happy to answer. And then here for Gerard and Ryan, if either of you want to jump in here, this is a question from Demetrius. We're a new beverage business, 8-ounce cans, 5 SKUs. What recommendations do you have for brands with smaller quantity of SKUs and unpredictable monthly volume? Should we run it on our own since it is so small? And I'm assuming the follow-up is, should we outsource it from a fulfillment perspective? And so Gerard, I know you just launched Ocean Co. not too long ago. So maybe you want to talk about that, the value of doing it yourself versus handing it off to somebody else.
Yeah, Casey, I think you and I have had this conversation. So like you mentioned earlier, I also run method marketing, and we're working with a couple of brands. And when we talk about 3PL, the question always comes up, what is it going to cost us? And that's a valid question. But when we moved to ShipBob, it actually saved us money, because if you look at the volume that you guys ship in, you're actually able to negotiate those shipping rates and get a lower shipping rate that we'd be able to do ourselves. So I've gone to the drawing board and tried to map out exactly what it would cost, for me to hire people to fulfill our own orders, and have a small warehouse and do the shipping ourselves. And it actually winds up being so much more expensive. Plus, it's also time that you're taking away from doing what you're good at. So from that perspective, I would recommend anybody use the 3PL, because especially when you're a young brand, your time is the most valuable thing. You're not able to hire the people to do things for you. You need to put your effort into things to grow your brand and not worry about scheduling people to pick stuff off the shelf, worrying about, people calling in sick when they're supposed to be fulfilling your orders for you. I'm away from doing marketing and doing the important stuff that you can do best to try to fulfill orders. So for us, it was a cost savings. It's been a cost savings. We've explored that option, and we keep coming back to, there's no way we can do it cheaper.
Love that, Gerard. Thank you for getting in there. And then Ryan, what about you? Multiple brands, and you've run a 3PL.
And I've done in a past life, done my own warehousing, where we did our own pick and pack. And I would say it's interesting because some people talk about it, and you've probably heard this, where they're like, I'm too small for a 3PL. And then other people think, I'll use a 3PL until I'm a certain size. So it's kind of like the opposite, right? Mm-hmm. I would argue whether you are just starting or you're massive, you should take advantage of the economies of scale that somebody can leverage for you so that you don't have to do it all yourself. Because we suck as entrepreneurs at predicting and understanding our real opportunity costs, right? Myself included. Like, there's a lot of things that I find myself doing, and then I'm like, why am I doing this task that, one, I don't particularly like, and two, what I could pay somebody else to do it is significantly less than the value of my time that I would assign to myself, right? So you have to think in those terms, opportunity costs. And I don't think very many people fully understand, because it's actually pretty difficult to calculate the opportunity cost of doing your own fulfillment. But if you really think it through, from everything to managing the extra employees out there to, there's so much more that goes into it than you would ever think. Like, I remember in a past business, when we did our own fulfillment, on a regular basis, I would have somebody come into my office and say, hey, we're all out there packing orders. Can you come out and help? And it sucked because I didn't want to seem like I was above it, but it was always a waste of time, And so if you can just kick that out to somebody else, that whether you're seeing peaks or valleys, to them it's more or less the same, because all their clients are in peaks and valleys, but in aggregate it balances out more or less. I mean, just take advantage of that and just what most people do is they may have had one bad experience and they assume that all 3PLs suck. And maybe they all do to some degree if you're going to get nitpicky about an occasional mispick. But if somebody's 99.9% accurate and they take that burden away from you and they're good people to work with and they can pass on saving rates and you can look at your true opportunity costs and understand that they're there, just don't even do it. Why do it?
Yeah, thanks for jumping in there on your view. And I think something that we've seen come up quite a bit lately, especially with the volatility from coronavirus, where I think there was let's say a 2-week window where everybody's business kind of went down. And then since then, we've seen some of our customers in aggregate, we're well beyond Black Friday, Cyber Monday numbers. And so some people are way down, some people are just, astronomically higher. And so you can't really predict what's going to happen always. And so it's the difference between fixed costs and variable costs. And so when you have your own warehouse and you have your own employees fulfilling this, that's a fixed cost that you're always going to have. Whereas with the variable costs, whether it be ShipBob or somebody else, you're only paying on like the storage that you're using, and you're only paying on the fulfillment labor when you are utilizing that. And so if your sales are way down, on the fulfillment side, you're paying zero. And if your sales are way up, you're paying for the fulfillment costs, but that's because you're also generating sales. And so it can ebb and flow with the success of your business as well. So here's a question from John. What are your thoughts on offering single products and subscriptions side by side like Dr. Squatch? I think Gerard answered that earlier, John, if you disagree. I know subscriptions and bundles aren't the same. And so Gerard or Ryan, if you want to jump in there, I'm a huge proponent of subscriptions in general. But John, if you would maybe just elaborate there, if we didn't answer that with the bundle item. But John also asked, here we have a couple marketing questions. So what are the best, okay, I like actually how this is phrased, so I might modify how this is phrased. What are the best tools for targeting Facebook ads and Instagram? Would you recommend Facebook and Instagram, or is there a better platform for paid ads? It's a newer company with a newer product. So before I rephrase the question, Gerard or Ryan, want to jump in on the Instagram and Facebook side of the world?
Sure. I'm a big fan of Facebook and Instagram ads, even ahead of Google. I mean, Google ads, you can get a better return, but they typically won't scale in the same way that Facebook ads might. And, especially if you have some means to pull in relevant data to go beyond just traditional lookalike audiences, it can make a massive difference. And Facebook ads continue to go up and up until recently, actually. They dropped a bit. But over the last 5 years, it's, if you were to chart that, it would look like Amazon stock or Shopify stock. It would just be going up. But that said, it still can be very cost effective if you have the right people managing it. And Google's, you can probably get a better return on ad spend and with most campaigns with Google ads, but it probably won't scale anywhere near what you could with Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We use Facebook and Instagram for prospecting, but I think you have to have all the pieces of the puzzle lined up. You have to have those the Google ads for retargeting. You have to have a proper email system to make sure you're fully capturing the value of your audience. If you're just sending Facebook ads to a page that is selling a product but doesn't have a way to capture their email address, doesn't have a way to retarget that customer, then you're kind of throwing a lot of money out the window. As Facebook ads get more and more expensive, you have to be really efficient. You have to watch how you spend that money, and not having, a fully efficient website that's capturing the customer value, not just from a purchase the first time, but also, getting their email, getting SMS, however you want to capture that value, it's becoming more and more important. It's also more and more important to have a increasing average order value, because you're spending more and more on CPMs. So if you can't find a good way to increase that average order value, you're going to quickly be kind of pricing yourself out of Facebook ads.
Awesome. And then John had a follow-up. Do you use Facebook interface? Is there a tool to help with targeting, or hire an expert? I think it depends. There are if it's just retargeting, another solutions like Shoelace, if it's all top of funnel, and again, if Gerard or Ryan, if you want to jump in here, there are agencies and experts that are really good, but if you're not spending a whole lot, it might not be the best route. I know Common Thread Collective launched their admission program, which is trying to help provide as much education to people that are just getting started. Unfortunately, the answer is often it depends. Gerard, Ryan, anything you want to add maybe on like the Facebook interface or how to approach it if you're newer?
Just getting started, you're better off trying to run it yourself and learn, because even if you hire an agency, you're going to need to have some knowledge to know what's going on. You're going to have to be able to speak the lingo and understand. Plus a lot of agencies, the good agencies won't look at you unless you're putting up a $5,000 a month detainer or more, which right there prices a lot of people out of that. So I highly recommend learning that as a skill, and you could pass it off later, but then you'll at least have some understanding of what's going on, and you'll be able to monitor that. Ryan, I don't know if you.
I agree completely. I mean, I have an agency called Iconify that every day we tell people we can't take you on, and in some cases we could charge $5,000 and let them spend $1,000. But I just tell people that this is not smart. This is not a good way to go about it. Even if you have the money to burn, I won't run your campaign if you're paying me more than you're spending, and you don't want to outspend your ability to have this scale. So I do think it's better to start out with probably doing it in-house and get some traction, get some data, know what you're dealing with. But I do think that agencies, obviously, I'm biased here, but agencies, a good agency is worth it. And especially if it's performance-based, like very few of our clients ever hit their retainer because we tie it to performance. And so our ambitions and theirs are aligned. But going back to the question about return on ad spend, I mean, you can look at ROAS, but you kind of have to look at it in relation to other things. What is your return on ad spend relative to how much you want to scale? And that's determined based on your margins and a few other factors. But you also have to look at what is my customer lifetime value? Do I want to cast a wider net, and can I live with a little bit of a hit in ROAS to get a larger audience? And then to his point, that it makes a big difference if you're driving traffic to this site. What are you doing to capture more emails and automatically, automate a segmentation process to re-engage with those people? And a lot of people assume that capturing emails with whatever's baked into their ESP or ECRM is enough, but there's a bunch of really cost-effective tools. I'm talking like either a percentage of sale or $100 or $200 a month that you can string together to make a massive difference in capturing more emails, segmenting those emails, improving your deliverability, improving your abandoned cart, and boosting your conversion and your average order value, all by having these tools feed off of each other. And they're very, very cheap. I mean, they're very cost effective.
And something that you mentioned too, Brian, that I don't think can be understated is aligning your incentives. And so with like ShipBob, for example, for the vast majority of what you pay us is based off of your shipment volume. And so if you're succeeding, we're succeeding. And so just like Ryan said with his agency, and I'm not sure how Gerard approaches it as well, if you can make sure that you're aligning your incentives so that you're both, it's not just maybe necessarily getting paid to like spend more money, but if like you're both succeeding together, it's extremely important. So here's a question from Wahid, which is similar-ish to stay in like the marketing world, is what percentage, and I know the answer is going to be that depends, but maybe we can get into like the weeds on how we can think about this. What percentage of the total order value should we put to marketing, trying to understand what the reasonable cost per sale value is?
It's going to depend on your margins on the product. There's certain products that you can spend a lot more on marketing than others. But like Ryan said, you have to look at that lifetime customer value. With Ocean & Co., we're willing to take a slight loss or break even on acquiring a customer. because we know that we're going to get a second purchase, and that's where you make your money. But you have to know your margins. You have to know your math, because I've worked with a couple people that they want to shut off ads when they're not making money off that first purchase, when the second purchase comes 30 days later, and it's a much higher profitability because you're not spending money on ads for that second purchase. So just crunch your numbers, figure out what your margins are, figure out what your lifetime customer value is, what's your percentage of return purchases, and run ads based on that. And everything you do with ads, it has to have a bigger picture. You can't be looking at a 1 day window for running your ads. You have to be looking at a bigger picture and down the line.
I love that, Gerard. And that's where I was talking to a customer of ours. They run a luxury men's I don't know face moisturizer brand. As you can tell, I might not be their go-to. It's called Caldera Lab, and the people who run that, they understand their customer base, and they understand marketing and performance marketing extremely well, and they know their margins and their total COGS and everything. And so they're willing to take, like Gerard said, that slight loss on the first purchase, because they know that over half of their customers then get into their subscription funnel, and so they know that they're going to make that up. Everybody who gets on the subscription side, 100 out of 100 times, when that second purchase comes in, and everything else after that is icing on the cake. And then so it's, if you don't have a subscription, is there a subscription opportunity? And if you don't have a subscription, maybe is there some future sell or upsell or maybe seasonal type promotion you can follow up with after that. Here's a question from Kirsten I can answer very quickly. What e-commerce apps does ShipBob work with, like Shopify, Ecwid? Shopify, BigCommerce, Wix, Squarespace, all the major players. Again, feel free to email me, carmstrong@shipbob.com. Happy to answer. We don't have an integration with Ecwid, but we do ShipStation, which is often the go-between. I hear Ecwid sometimes. I don't know if I've ever seen or bought from an Ecwid site, but so it goes. And then let's see, another question. Elena, shipping 300 to 500 orders a month. My items are small. Is ShipBob for me? Sounds like it. Mick gave you my email address. Again, happy to answer. And then Ryan, I'll try to get through the ShipBob questions really fast. Ryan, does ShipBob charge per square foot in the warehouse? As they grow, do you need more space? Does our cost go up significantly? So we charge based off the bin, the shelf, and the pallet. And then Gerard, you've grown with us, so if you want to answer, do your costs go up significantly?
No, and that comes back to our conversation about managing inventory. You don't want to have too much inventory sitting around. You want to know how long your inventory is going to last you. And if you could properly forecast, you're going to reduce that storage cost. But as a percentage of our whole expenses, storage is pretty minimum. And to answer that other question, as far as the smaller items, doing 300 to 500 a month, like the majority of our orders are single bracelet or two bracelets. I think it's like 1 or 2 ounces. And yeah, we can't ship it ourselves. Like I couldn't go to the post office right now and ship it for cheaper than ShipBob does for me.
That's awesome. And then here's some questions. Oh, actually, here's some really good follow-up. So thanks for everybody in the comments jumping in with some ideas. So especially for those that are getting started with Facebook and Instagram, from Paul, ShopifyCompass.com. He dropped a link in here. I highly recommend checking that out. I know Paul's been able to scale his business really quickly, so another operator I'd highly recommend listening to. Let's see. Pat learned a ton from different YouTube ads. I know that Nick's used Udemy and Skillshare. So fortunately, there's a lot of good information. There's also a lot of noise. And you also don't need to learn literally everything. So try to pick up, I'd say, 1 or 2 tactics and then apply those actually in the wild, because that's where you're going to learn the best, because every business is slightly different.
Yeah, and I would just say too, real quick on that, like definitely don't just take those courses and then try out like one of these ad channels and then thinking that you can't, like it's just not profitable for you or it's just not working. Like I know that happens a lot with like Facebook and Instagram. I would recommend, if you don't think it's working, like definitely go to somebody or a consultant or reach out to your network or reach out to any of us and ask, because I think we've always run into that in the past. And there's people out there that they're experts in this and they definitely can help. So just want to throw that out there too, because I know it happens a lot.
Point. One of the single biggest things you can do as an e-commerce owner is develop a network around you of people that are doing the same thing as you, so you can bounce ideas off them. That's been super valuable for me, being able to reach out to my buddies that own e-commerce companies. Hey, I'm having this problem. Have you had it before? Who'd you go to? Networking within the e-commerce realm is a huge value. You'll save so much money. Even just asking questions like, hey, we're looking at using this app, or we're looking at using this marketing agency. Have you had experience with them? We've saved thousands upon thousands of dollars just bouncing that idea off people and saying, yeah, steer clear from them, or use these guys instead.
I love that, Gerard. And I think it was Chad over at Think Crucial, who was on the operator series a couple weeks ago, who mentioned that he was even having some supply chain issues, but he managed it. He stayed close, and he's been in the space for 10 to 12 years. People often look at their competitors, but then if you look at the total addressable market, it's massive. And so they might be your competitors, but like their success is not necessarily going to like thwart your success. And so when he was having some of these supply chain issues, and he runs a very large catalog, large business, he was able to reach out to some of them and get connected to some of their manufacturers. So he was able to backfill his inventory because he was getting slammed in demand, which is a good thing. And again, start getting his products back in his, digital shelves very quickly. And so just finding those in the space is, I'll echo the same thing, has been huge for me. I know that Nick would echo the same sentiment. So here's a question around B2B. And so Ryan and Gerard, I'm not sure your backgrounds here, but Pat asks, if trying to market or sell to other businesses for wholesale orders, is Facebook and Instagram the best avenue there, or how have you approached that?
I'd say no. I don't have a lot to add, but I would say, if we're talking about a consumer product, not a SaaS where your customer lifetime value is beyond, hundreds of dollars, but tens of thousands, that's a different story. But I would say no.
Well, I agree with Ryan. If it's directly, then no. If you're running ads on Facebook saying, hey, business, buy from us, no. We landed a deal with British Airways where all our bracelets are sold on their planes. And the way we did it is because someone that worked for them bought our bracelet and then, said, hey, we should carry these on our plane. So I think the best way to land B2B is to just grow your B2C and build a reputation. But I don't think running direct ads on Facebook for that purpose, where the messaging is that way, is going to really work that well.
I agree. And if your D2C is working and it's scaling and it's profitable, I would say hone in on that as long as you possibly can stomach it, because B2B is always going to be there. And it could be it could seem like the greatest thing you've ever done and end up being the worst thing you've ever done. I have a background in B2B prior to e-commerce, and trust me, you don't want to ship truckloads of goods to get 60 grand worth of chargebacks because the labels were crooked. You don't want to know 6 months after the fact whether or not you made as much as you thought, broke even, or lost six figures. And especially in today's landscape, you don't know if these guys are going to fold. And I'm not a huge fan of B2B unless it's on really good terms with a trustworthy company that isn't on the brink. And especially if what's working online, I'd rather have a profitable $10 million business online than a rocky $100 million business doing B2B.
And especially if you look at the climate right now, look at Frito-Lay. Like they're going direct to consumer right now. Like so many companies, big companies, are pivoting and trying to sell direct to consumer. That's your sign. That should be your focus. Go direct to consumer.
Great call out on Frito. I know Pepsi launched a few brands D2C, which they'd never done before, ever. And so it's been pretty fascinating just to see the innovation coming from larger companies as well. Here's a question from John. In choosing fulfillment, why ShipBob or ShipMonk? So I won't comment on ShipMonk, but with ShipBob, you can ask Gerard. You can go through our case studies. We have, I think now 10 or 11 fulfillment centers, 8 in the US, 1 in Canada, another 1 in Europe. We're continuously innovating and pushing things forward. And so I'd say less of us versus anybody else. You can see the types of brands that we work with and where we're trying to push the industry. And I know what the roadmap looks like for the next couple of years, and it has me extremely excited. So a question from Wahid, and would love to hear your answers here, Gerard and Ryan. I had so many questions lined up for you guys, and I haven't been able to get to any of mine, which I love because it's everybody from the audience. So thank you, everybody. And I'll have one final question at the end as well. But here from Wahid, I'm actually really interested to hear your answers, Gerard and Ryan, which is, so Gerard, you mentioned benefits of having like-minded e-commerce founders in your circle. And I'll actually say his last thing next. Most online communities are based around drop shipping, which dilutes the value. And I completely agree. There's so much noise around drop shipping, and I think that coronavirus is probably accelerating at least maybe the evolution of drop shipping, if not the death. Where can you meet other e-commerce founders, especially during COVID-19?
Yeah, if you want, I could take this one. So for me, it's been LinkedIn, it's been Shopify Plus communities. It's just been getting your name out there, doing even like videos like this. I think it's just putting yourself out there. What's interesting with e-commerce owners is we love talking about this. We're passionate about it. I try to talk to my wife about it, and she's tired of me hearing about it. So, having friends in the space, it's good to vent. I heard one of my buddies say recently, like, we're all manic depressants because when we're selling like crazy, we're on cloud 9, and when things are down, we're down in the dumps. So I think just putting yourself out there and being active on LinkedIn, finding Facebook groups that I'm in the Shopify Plus community where when we were considering a certain vendor, we put it in there. Hey, anybody have an experience in this? And they told us to steer clear, and we saved thousands and thousands of dollars from somebody else's mistake. So that's my input on that.
Love it, Ryan.
I don't think I'm manic. I must be depressive because even when things are going well, I tend to worry even more, ironically, because it's hard to grow and everything changes all the time. And I don't like to lose, and I don't like to have a business scale back at all. And so I'm always trying to learn. I'm always be very open to having conversations with people that I can't predict in any way how it's going to benefit me. But I just, as a general way of being, I'm a curious guy, and I'm always interested in having discussions with people that are in the consumer product and e-commerce space. And, I live in Utah where there's more e-commerce businesses per capita than anywhere, more Amazon sellers than anywhere, more Kickstarters than anywhere per capita. So it's, they call this small lake city. There's just a very tight-knit network of e-com bros and a few gals too. But
I'm so curious, why is Utah so prevalent in e-com?
Oh man, it's just in our blood, man. It's some in the water. No, it's part of our culture. We've always, even prior to e-commerce, say 10 years ago, when you wouldn't have seen this. Even prior to that, it's always been ranked as one of the most entrepreneurial places, and so it's just an extension of that. Just a rugged, Western state independence and self-reliance and hard work ethic. It's just part of the culture, and I just think it's an extension of that.
That's awesome. Limited sample size, but all my friends who moved to Utah there just start their own business, so it just must come with, like, I don't know, the driver's license.
Yeah.
I'll got a couple more. I know 2pml.com is a place that I follow a lot. They're building out a community there. Lean Lux, another newsletter, building out a community. AdLeaks has some interesting stuff. There's just a lot of communities out there. And also, if the first 1, 2, 3, 4 that you join are not for you, that's fine also. So like Gerard said, just put yourself out there, try it out. And if it's not right, just kill it and move on. So let's see, I'll go through the last couple. Let's see. From John, where in Canada? We're in Ottawa. Cool. We have a few more questions. We have no more time left. So I'll ask one more question, Gerard and Ryan. Whether it be during coronavirus or anything else, as people are looking to, exit and run through 2020 successfully, what is your number one piece of advice? So, Gerard, let's start with you, and then Ryan, we'll get to you next.
It's just continue to add value to the customer. The space is becoming more and more competitive, so you have to do the right thing. You have to do right by the customer. You have to continue to add value. If you're not, like Ryan said, if you're not continuing to learn and you're not continuing to try to add value and be the best in your field, you're gonna get outgunned soon. So continue learning and continue trying to add value to the customer.
Love it.
I'd say stay lean, figure out why people care, and focus on that, and outsource everything else. And then you can kind of outweather everything if you're focused on that and you're not over leveraged. So I think you're going to see a huge shift in how people value businesses, how people value e-commerce, and we're going to get back to caring more about profit than we have in the past, which is, in the end, what matters. Top line at all costs, hopefully, is a thing of the past. And so I just say stay lean and don't get too crazy about, I need to 10x every year because I read a Grant Cardone book. It's like, man, stay lean and stay healthy and don't get too crazy, and you can just slowly chip away at it, but focus on profitability first.
I love that. So I guess there was one more question from John. How do you get on stage? You can actually ask a question. We can pull you up here and you can ask the speakers. And so next week, John, please come back. We're here every week, Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We'd love to have you on, ask some questions. To recap what Gerard and Ryan said, continue to add value to the customers. It sounds like you, Gerard, have been sitting in some calls with our CEO. So he's always like, don't pay attention to the competitors, don't pay attention to X, Y, and Z. If we are consistently adding more and more value every single day to our customers, then nothing else matters. Love it. And then from Ryan, don't over leverage and focus on the right metrics. Completely agree. Stop reading that TechCrunch article or whatever it may be. And you don't need to chase the shiny pennies. If we've seen anything from this year, even before coronavirus hit or end of last year, companies like WeWork or Uber or Outdoor Voices, those that were over leveraged and got all the pub in the world, and then you kind of peek behind the curtain a little bit, and it's just a cash flow and P&L nightmare. Don't believe necessarily all the press. So on a brighter note, thank you for joining us. Greatly value all of your time. I love it. Love the questions. Gerard, Ryan, appreciate you taking the time to drop some knowledge here. I know I learned a bunch. I feel like I'm the biggest winner in these because I get to just learn from you all. We're here next Wednesday. Nick's going to follow up with the winners and the prizes so
looking like we got two winners here, Wahid and John. I'll just have to go back and double check on the questions, but this is awesome. Appreciate it, guys. It's always better when we can have some questions going, good discussion. I mean, it's already an hour in, so we're finishing off. So definitely do appreciate that, and I'll be following up here after.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody.
Take care. Thanks for having me on. Bye.
Bye.